Hello. Hello, 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 hello. Alright. Making some incredible steak today. Alright, well, today I'm going to show you how to make some beautiful American Wagyu Culinary steaks served au poivre style. Alright, so we're going to be rocking some Hasselback potatoes too, which is a crowd favorite. Super cool technique. Honestly, very simple as well. But with that being said, as we go through this class, feel free that you can pause, rewind, fast forward, okay? Take screenshots. But either way, this is a really delicious dish that we got going over here, and I'm really excited to cook it. So to get us started, we're going to go through our mise en place super quick, okay? So first things first, you will notice we have a cutting board. All right, I also have my knife right here, okay, for maximum cutting purposes, okay. We got a couple chopsticks. You can use some wooden spoons too if you want, but these are going to be like our little guards, so we don't cut all the way through the potatoes, right? When we go to cut them. So we got some chopsticks over here. We also have a couple sheet trays lined with parchment or aluminum. Okay, we got two small pots over here. All right, as well as got ourselves a little pastry brush, mixing bowl, pair of tongs. Okay, and last but certainly not least, you can use a cast iron or a beautiful large saute pan. Okay, so that is all of our mise en place items that we need. Okay, next up, our ingredients. Okay, we got some really beautiful ingredients over here. First things first, take a look at those steaks, right? We got some absolutely stunning steaks over here. So we're using a cut that we call the culinary steak, right? Which is a really beautiful cut. Very little known about it in the United States, or just not super common, right? But it's a really nice cut. It comes from in between, right, the sirloin and the short loin, and a lot of times it's called the top sirloin cap, right? But it's a really beautiful muscle that doesn't get a ton of weight bearing on it, so it's a really tender cut and honestly really flavorful too. And so we're using these beautiful strip steaks. If you're doing this truffle shuffle class, you will be having those. They are coming from our partners at Snake River Farm over in Idaho. This is an American Wagyu cross, which means that it is a part Wagyu cattle, right, which is the beautiful Japanese cow that has a really high fat content, nice marbling, right, and it's crossed with a Black Angus cow, right, which is an American breed. It's a really nice meat cow, right? It's got that really nice texture, really nice flavor. So personally, if you ask me, it's like my favorite combination of the two is the American Wagyu beef. So we got those on a plate. Okay, we have them out tempering. Okay, it's really important whenever you are cooking meat that you always temper the meat. It's impossible to cook meat properly if you don't allow it to come up to room temperature, right? Reason why is on an extreme level, right? Take a frozen piece of meat and try cooking it, right? You're gonna be hammered on the outside and be completely cold, like directly under that crust, right? It's the same thing if you take it out of the fridge and put it right into a saute pan. The outside will cook, the inside is ice cold. And the way heat works is it has to penetrate from the outside into the steak, right? And this is the same for chicken, for fish. Every time you cook protein, you always got to temper it, okay? Which is a great little tip for you to take away. We're going to be tempering these, 15 to 30 minutes-ish, right? And that's a good amount of time to get that tempering, take that chill off the meat, and allow us to cook it perfectly, okay? So that is our steak. We also have some gorgeous, right, russet potatoes over here. Okay, we're going to be doing some Hasselback potatoes or David Hasselhoff potatoes, okay? Got a little sauce Diane base, which is half cup cream, a little bit of Dijon, and some Worcestershire sauce, right? Maximum flavor in one bottle. A little canola oil. We got some black peppercorns, which we will crush, right? Some butter, a little rosemary, a little shallot, and we got some garlic over here, okay? Last but not least, we got some beautiful asparagus, right? Asperge, which is, you know, one of the top ingredients of all time, asparagus, right? Have you ever seen asparagus, or rather haven't seen asparagus, the way that it's cultivated? It's pretty amazing. Like, if you go to an asparagus field, it's literally just little tips of asparagus sticking out of the ground, right? No joke. It's the shoots of the plant, right, that get harvested, and it's actually, the tip of the asparagus is actually an unbloomed flower, right? But we'll show you how to cook it. A lot of people, they get nervous about cooking asparagus, but we'll show you how to do it in a way that's very easy and super quick, right? So, with that being said, those are our ingredients and our mise en place. Okay, so if you are ready to get cooking, okay, give yourself a little pat on the back. Make sure you got yourself a beverage poured over here. Okay, and we're gonna dive right into it. Okay, so we're gonna go to our prep during our class section. The first thing I want you to do is preheat the oven to 450 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay, so we're gonna go 450. We're going super hot. Okay, if you have a convection setting, turn it on. Okay, conventional works fine too. Convection, if you have it, is great. And so the reason why we're cooking these potatoes like this is because russet potatoes, they'll get super crispy on the outside and they'll get really fluffy on the inside, right? Which gives us the effect that we're looking for with those Hasselback potatoes, right? Which are potatoes with those really thin slices, okay, without going all the way through. So it's almost like eating sliced potatoes, right? That are nice and crispy, but they're in one piece. So we're gonna preheat it to 450. First thing we're gonna do is we're gonna get our potatoes cut. Okay. So I've gone ahead. I've washed my potatoes. All right. So I got them on my board over here. And what I want to do is I want to trim one piece of my potato, right? One side of my potato, so it stands still, right? And it doesn't move around. Whenever you're cutting round products, right? They'll roll around on your cutting board super easily. Okay, what I like to do is I like to get ahead of that. So I'm just going to roll it onto its side. Just trim one piece, right? Set it off to the side. Okay, we can compost those if we want to. We'll not necessarily need them for this recipe. Okay, so I got my potatoes cut. All right, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna start cutting them into the layers. Okay, that is signature for the Hasselback potato. Okay, so what we want to do is you want to grab a pair of chopsticks, right? Lay them on your cutting board. If you don't have chopsticks, a wooden spoon will work great, right? 2 wooden spoons work perfectly fine. I would suggest using wood, right? Because knife is metal, okay? Wood is wood. The wood is softer than metal, so therefore you will not dull your knife, right? As easily as if you're using metal spoons, okay? So with that being said, you'll kind of see from our aerial camera over here what we're looking for. All right, and then from the side, boom. So we're going to be able to cut down through our potato, but by the time we hit that chopstick, it's actually not really going to go anywhere. Okay, so what we want to do is make nice thin slices. Okay, this depends on your knife skills. Okay, if you want to really hone those knife skills, all right, on Truffle Shuffle, we got our nice knife skills certification course you got to check out. Okay, but you know, truly, what I always like to teach is one hand is curled, right? The fingers are curled in. That's the claw, right? The chef's claw. The other hand I actually have on my knife, okay? And I always like to keep my index finger on top to give me that control. Okay, so with our fingernails, we're gonna actually set where the knife is going to go, and the knife is just going to follow our fingernails. Okay, it might sound strange, it might be a little bit scary at first, but think about using a knife as like a saw, right? The blade of the knife is a saw blade, and your hand is like the guard, right? So I'm gonna come through here. I'm gonna make my first slice. Okay, and just be careful with the first one. You might not be able to go all the way down to those chopsticks. Okay, I certainly wasn't on the first one. Okay, and then I'm gonna move my knife over about 1/8 of an inch. All right, make another slice. Okay, and another slice, right? And at this point, now I'm going to get to the point where I can actually cut all the way down to the chopsticks. Almost. Just about there. Alright. Boom. There we go. So now I'm cutting all the way down until I hit those chopsticks. Okay. Notice that my potato is staying together. And I'm really trying to hit that kind of 1/8 of an inch thick mark. Okay. And so this is a really cool technique, you know, that you can do with potatoes. We would do it with squash too sometimes. Zucchini, it works really well. And it has a really, really cool look to it, right? It's actually very easy to do, right? But because, you know, a lot of times nice cuisine is really identified by multiple layers, right? Anytime anything shows that you've done work to it, okay, and you've, you know, really taken the time to make something happen, that's, you know, many times what denotes fine dining cuisine from more rustic cuisine, right? That's literally how it can be summed up, in my opinion, right? So as we're coming down over here, again, just making sure, taking a check from time to time, right, that we're not slicing all the way through. If you do, it's not the end of the world, okay? But again, we're just looking for those really thin layers, and by doing this, it's going to give us this beautiful effect, okay? So I'm coming through here, and again, once you get to that other end too, you got to just be careful. You might not be able to go all the way down to the chopsticks, right? Because we don't want to cut all the way through our potato, but we still want to get those little layers, okay? Boom, look at that. Wow. So once I got them cut, I'm going to transfer this potato onto my sheet tray, okay? Boom, just like that, all right? And if you've done it right, it almost looks like you haven't done anything at all, okay? Check that out. Boom, but if you look up close, okay, I don't know if our little camera can catch this up. Look at that. Oh, wow.
Ooh, that's not bad.
Okay. So, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to get my second potato rolling the same exact way. Okay, so take a moment and get to it. Again, those first couple slices, you might not be able to go all the way down. Even if you do, okay, it's not the end of the world. All right? The thing is, uncooked potatoes, because they have so much starch in them, you can literally like almost put them back together, right? Not a problem at all. But nice. And so basically, another key component of this is using the right potato, okay? You can do this effect with any of these potatoes, right? You can do the same effect with any of these potatoes, but it won't necessarily give you the same finish result if you do this with like a Yukon potato, right? Because Yukon Gold potatoes are creamy potato. Russet is a starchy potato, right? So therefore, it gets much, much crispier, right? And fluffier on the outside. So again, not that you can't do it, but in my opinion, the russet is superior for this technique, chef, you know. Beautiful. So, finishing cutting these guys over here. Excellent. These chopsticks, boom. We'll save those for a future recipe, future experience. All right. And so, what I want to do, come over here. I got my little potatoes. Okay. And I'm just going to set these off to the side as I go to prepare my next items in this recipe, okay? Which is getting our butter melted down and infused. All right, so got my potatoes off to the side. We're going to go directly into step 4. And we're going to get a couple tablespoons of butter heated up, okay? That we can melt down. So what I want to do is go ahead, grab my butter. I'm going to use about 4 tablespoons of butter for this, okay? Which will be, if you're using a stick of butter, half a stick, okay? So, got my butter. Boom. Cut that in half. Pop it into our little pan, okay? We're just going to melt this down, right? On about medium-low heat, okay? As it's melting, we're going to get some aromatics into this butter to infuse the flavor, okay? And so, you know, great chefs always say, right? There's a chef named Ferdinand Poirier. He always said that good cooking is a lot of little things done well, right? And so, by us adding a little bit of garlic, okay, and rosemary into the butter pot, right, we're going to be able to add those little elements, okay, into our finished product that tastes unbelievably delicious, right? So, come over here, grab a couple cloves. I'm going to use about 2 or 3, all right? While I'm here, I'm also going to grab a couple cloves for basting my steak, which is another really important move to get maximum flavor, okay? And very importantly, we're going to leave the garlic en chemise, okay? And that literally means in a shirt, okay? So what we want to do is take the side of our knife and just crush the garlic clove, right? And again, we're going to keep that skin on, chef. It's going to be delicious, okay? So come over here, boom. We got our garlic crushed, right? We're going to take about 2 or 3 cloves of garlic. We're going to save that for our basting kit, right? Our basting setup. And then we're also going to take a couple cloves of that beautiful garlic over there, okay? And we're going to pop them directly into our butter as it's melting, all right? Boom. So we got a little bit of butter in there, a little bit of garlic. I'm going to take my rosemary too, okay? I'm going to place half of my rosemary in my basting kit, all right? Just kind of cut off any woody ends that might be there on that rosemary, right? That way we're not messing with those. And then I'm also going to pop the other half of my rosemary into my butter, all right? And that's going to give us a really beautiful aroma that's going to happen over here, okay? And so again, I'm on about medium low to low heat. All right, we're just going to infuse this butter, this beautiful garlicky butter over here, all right, with these flavors. All right, look at that. Wow. Beautiful. So we're gonna let this cook just for a little bit, just to infuse the flavor, okay? As we're infusing it, we're just gonna finish getting our basting set up together, okay? Which for this, we will need about 2 more tablespoons of butter, okay? Which, if you're working from that stick, is another 1/4 of a stick of butter, all right? So take that, pop it right in here, et voila. That's what we call our basting setup for our steak. The rest of that butter, make sure you save it. Some delicious butter for a future recipe, okay? So, at this point, my butter is starting to bubble up. Okay, my rosemary and thyme and garlic hanging out in there, getting all kinds of flavorful. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it off the heat. Right? You can see how mine's looking. Look at that. Boom. Oh my gosh. You want to just hang out there with that rosemary and thyme and garlic. Right? So, we got the heat off, and we're going to start brushing our potatoes. Okay? So, we want to come over here. Grab those potatoes. Alright. We're also going to grab our pastry brush. You can do this with a spoon, okay, as well. And come over here, and we're literally just going to brush the butter on top of our potatoes. Okay, so you want to imagine like you're painting that first layer of paint on your house. All right, you don't want to go super crazy and just get a whole bunch of butter all over your sheet tray, right? Because that's unnecessary. Just one nice layer right on top, okay? And what this is going to do is, you know, fat really helps us with heat distribution. Okay, it encourages even heat distribution. That's why we coat things in oil and butter and whatnot before we put them into an oven. Okay, so come over here, get a nice coating. I probably have used about 1/3 of my butter-ish. Okay. The way we're going to be cooking these Hasselback potatoes is we're going to cook them for about 30 minutes, right? Turn them. Cook them for another 30 over here. And they're going to take anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour to get really crispy on the outside and completely tender on the inside. Okay, so we got our first layer over here. All right. And what I want to do is now I want to come over here and a little sprinkle of our Balinese truffle salt all over these potatoes. Okay, you can kind of hammer the outside a little bit. Personally, I always like the saltiness on the outside of the potato. That then will get nice and crispy on us. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and transfer these into my oven. My oven's preheated, 450. We're going to go ahead, we're going to set a 30-minute timer over here, Chef. Boom. 30 minutes. Excellent. All right. And that's going to bring us over here directly to the end of step 5 in our prep during our class section. Okay, so we went ahead. These potatoes, again, are going to cook 45 minutes to an hour depending on your oven. And it's time for us to prep out the other items. Make sure to save that butter and thyme and garlic deliciousness. We will be coming back to it very shortly. Okay, so with that being said, we're diving into our next steps over here. Okay, which is to go ahead and peel and mince our shallot. All right, so grab that shallot. What we want to do is just trim the top. Okay, and just trim the bottom of our shallot. Set it off to the side. And then I need to split this shallot in half across the root. Okay? In order to dice it up beautifully. Okay, so split it in half across the root. Make sure you keep that little root end on. We're going to peel back these little shallots. Alright? Boom. And sometimes you have kind of like I do. Shallot has 2 halves in it, 3 halves. Shallots are kind of crazy. So sometimes you get all kinds of crazy shapes on the shallots. But I'm going to come over here, peel those back. Make sure there's 0 papery layer on that shallot. Okay? And any little shallot peels, garlic peels, right? Any ends to the herbs, those types of things. We can save those, right? Always want to save those. Never throw anything out as a chef, okay? So, save those in a little bowl. Set them off to the side. You can make a beautiful veg stock, okay, with those little peelings of the shallot. All right? No. But you can see over here, I got my nice cleaned up shallots off to the side. Okay, and now I'm going to show you how to mince them up. Okay, into in French what we call a haché. Right, we're going to haché these shallots, get that nice super fine mince. Okay, so you want to place the shallot on your cutting board, right, with the root end facing away from me. Okay, so I got the root end away. I'm going to make vertical slices in the shallot without going all the way through the root, okay? And that's going to keep it all intact, all right? So I'm going to come over here, start off little vertical slices, right? You'll see, got those going. I haven't gone all the way through the root, all right? And then I'm going to turn that shallot horizontally. Depending on how thick your shallot is, we're going to come across the grain once, maybe twice. And again, I'm not going all the way through the root. So I have a beautiful, what we call a squared up shallot right there. So you can see that. I'm just going to come across the grain and slice this shallot as thin as I can. Okay. And so, again, it's not the end of the world if your shallot is not completely perfect, right? Because we're going to end up coming back through and chopping it up really fine into that beautiful haché. Okay? So, again, same thing with my other half. And I got 4 halves over here, believe it or not. Anyone who's a math whiz out there, you can check me on that one. But, I got my shallots over here. So I'm going to do this with all of my shallot, okay? Beautiful. So, and we're going to end up using all this shallot for this recipe, even if you have just a little bit left, right? Or sorry, even if your shallot's a little bit smaller than mine looks like, or maybe even a touch bigger, either or, we're going to use all that shallot. It's going to be about, I don't know, I'd say about 2 tablespoons or so, 2 to 3 tablespoons of shallot, right? Boom. And so, once all my shallots are sliced, right, now I'm going to come back here and chop them up really nice and fine, okay? And again, those little ends of those shallots, make sure that we save those. Those little woody ends, or sorry, the little ends near the root. We're going to save those in our pot to make a little vegetable stock with. All right, and so come over here, and what I like to do is place one hand on the top of my knife, one hand on my handle. I'm going to rock my knife back and forth all over these shallots until they're a nice fine mince. Okay? I want them to be a nice fine mince over here to yield that beautiful little haché that I'm looking for. Okay? And so, you'll notice that doing these with a knife is very different than if you you'll see some recipes where they'll say, oh, hey, take the shallot or the onions or whatnot and put them in a food processor and blend them up, right? The reason why it's different is food processors and products like that, they actually have very dull blades, right? Suppose my knife is nice and sharp. And so, the dull blade makes it where you're actually crushing the onions as opposed to slicing them. And it does give you a completely different flavor profile in the finished product, right? So, come through here. We're going to chop them all up to the really nice, fine, minced shallots. Okay, that beautiful shallot haché over there, chef. All right. And then we're just going to transfer my shallot into a little bowl or a little plate. All right, and we're just going to set those off to the side. Okay? Well, again, getting our mise en place completely organized. Keep it nice, neat, and clean. You notice I have a wet towel, a damp towel that I'm always cleaning my station with. Okay? Super important just to keep everything really, really nice and clean, because you'll notice the best chefs in the world are the cleanest. Right? They keep everything super, super clean. So, I got my shallots over here. I also have my little basting kit. Okay? And so what I want to do is I want to come over here next and crush up our little peppercorns. Okay, so we got these beautiful little peppercorns. All right, and we're gonna go ahead, crush these up. You can use a small pot for this; works great. I literally just leave them right in this little baggie, right? And we're just gonna roll our pot on top of these peppercorns to crush them up. Okay, and we're looking just to crush each little peppercorn at least once. Okay, into there you go. So we got those kind of nice large chunks of peppercorns. And so we're gonna be doing our steaks au poivre today. Okay, which literally means with pepper. Okay, crusted in pepper. And this is a really cool technique that you can do for steaks anytime, right? It's super, super easy. So I'm going to go ahead, crush them up real quick. All right. I'm going to set them onto a little plate. Okay. And you'll see, basically, we'll just crust one side of these steaks and give ourselves that really, really nice little pepper crust on the outside. Beautiful. That way, we'll be able to have that that nice little bit of pepper flavor on the outside, right? So, I got my little pepper over here. I'll set that off to the side. Okay. Boom. And so, at this point, our potatoes have been cooking for about 20 minutes. Okay. We are getting to the next steps over here. We're ready to actually start cooking this sauce. Okay, so if you are a little bit behind where I'm at, feel free. You can pause this. Okay, but I'm gonna go ahead get our sauce going, get our shallots cooking, get all these other items going. That way we can start eating this delicious dish. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and just get rid of this butter. Okay. Take my small pot, and what I want to do is I want to go ahead and actually heat up my small pot with a little bit of butter in it. Okay, about a teaspoon of butter or so. And so what we can do is grab a little bit of butter, pop it into our pot. And this is going to help us cook these shallots, okay, into those nice, beautiful, soft shallots. So I'm going to go nice medium-low heat over here. All right. We're going medium-low just to melt that butter down. And basically, once that butter is melted, right, we're going to add the shallots to the pan along with a nice sprinkle of salt. And that's going to allow us to really cook the shallots till they're nice and soft. Okay? So, my butter's over here. Right? We'll go ahead, add my little shallots in here. Along with a nice pinch of truffle salt. Beautiful. And we're just going to cook these over nice low heat until they start to soften up a little bit. Okay? Until they start to soften up a little bit. And it'll take a couple minutes. The shallots need to cook down. They need to soften up just a touch, right? And what we're doing is we're really concentrating the flavor of the shallots, right? Anytime we're removing water, we're concentrating flavor, okay? And that's the reason why you'll see us a lot of times cook vegetables before we put them in the sauce. Because if we were to just put the vegetables in the sauce, the first thing they do is let their water out, dilute the sauce, and then we'd have to boil the water out of the sauce, right? That's why first we always soften the vegetables, then we add our sauce base, okay? So, I'm just going to keep my eye on these. Alright, again, I got them on nice low heat. Low to medium low heat. And we're just going to continuously stir them until they're nice and soft, okay? So, while our sauce is going, we're going to keep our eye on those shallots. And while there's a going, we're going to give ourselves some space over here to get these beautiful asparagus prepared. Alright. So, asparagus, because they're a reed, they always have like a woody end on them. And the best way to find the woody end is literally just to snap the asparagus, right? It'll naturally snap at the space in the asparagus where it is the most tender, okay? Where the woody part meets the tender part. And so, as I'm doing this, we don't really have too much use for these woody ends over here, right? So I'm just going to compost these. I know some chefs, they'll take these, they'll juice them, they'll make some asparagus juice to cook their risotto or whichever. You can totally do that. I'm not going to use these guys, okay? Don't forget to stir your shallots, right? A little stir on those guys. So, with our asparagus, honestly, we're just trying to cut our asparagus into little 2-inch pieces, okay? So, most likely, we're just going to come over here. I'm going to line them up by the tops of the asparagus, right? Go about 2 inches down. Make a cut. Alright. Go another 2 inches. Make one more cut. Alright. These nice little asparagus pieces over here, I'm going to use these, right? Make sure you save those. I'm going to use these in a little spinach and egg omelet, right? I'm going to be rolling with. And so what I want to do is I'm going to take these little pieces of asparagus. Alright. I'm going to pop them into a mixing bowl. We're just going to get them mixed up real quick for our dish. Okay, so I got my asparagus in here. I'm going to grab just a touch of canola oil. Okay. Just a little bit of canola oil over here. Into my bowl. The rest of that canola we're going to save for when we cook our steak. Alright. Again, making sure to stir your shallots. A little PSA. I'm also going to add to my asparagus a sprinkle of that truffle salt, right? Just a little bit. Give it a quick toss. We're going to lay this out onto our sheet tray in one even layer. Alright, and that's going to give us the asparagus ready to go for our cooking. Okay? Me, just because I always want to keep everything as tight and neat and clean as possible. Right? We're going to come over here and we're going to go asparagus tips on one side, asparagus ends on the other. Alright? We got them prepped, ready to go for our oven over here. Okay? So, asparagus is ready. Just set that off to the side. Coming back and checking out my shallots. Okay? And mine are starting to get nice and soft. Okay? They're starting to get nice and soft over here. You can see they're nice and translucent. Okay, they've softened up a little bit. Alright? And so, now that they're nice and soft, what I'm going to do is they're going to be ready for me to add my little sauce Diane base, which is cream, Dijon, and Worcestershire. Okay? All conveniently mixed together for you. So I'm gonna come over here, open up that little container, right? Pop that into my shallots, all right, and make sure you come over here, give it a little once over, get all of that beautiful mix out of that container that we sent to you. Okay. And what we want to do is we want to just bring this to a boil. Okay. We're going to just bring it to a boil. We're going to season it with a little bit of salt. Okay. And give it a taste, and you'll notice that the cream in there is nice and creamy on our palate, but the Dijon, the Worcestershire does have a lot of acidity and depth of flavor to it. So this is a very simple sauce you can make, really delicious, right? Great with steak, great with chicken, great with pork too, and really, really easy to make. So mine over here is just now coming to a boil. So I'm going to move it around real quick, get a quick taste. All right. Mine tastes good. Mine does need a little pinch of salt. Okay, just a touch. All right. And again, with this, you know, you can add herbs, thyme, right? Pepper if you want to. I'm keeping mine super, super clean. Oof, that's good. And the sharpness of it is going to cut through the steak really well. So once it's boiling, turn the heat off. Okay? Set it off to the side. And whenever we work with sauces, we always want to keep a lid on to avoid any skin forming on that sauce. Okay? So at this point, we got our sauce heated up, right? Got that lid on. Our potatoes are still in the oven. Okay? This officially brings us to the end of our how to cook section. Okay? And so, we got a couple minutes left over here. So, I'm going to go ahead and pause this real quick. We got about 10 minutes. Okay? So, if you're at this stage in the recipe, set a 10-minute timer. And I'm going to see you here in about 10 minutes so we can take a look at these potatoes, see how they're doing, get the rest of our mise en place together. All right? See you soon. Okay, well at this point, our potatoes have been cooking for about 30 minutes, and we're going to go ahead and unveil them right now. All right, so let's take a little peek. Boom, look at those. Looking stunning, but I want to give them another brush over here. Okay? And what I like to do when I do this second brush is kind of lay my brush right in the center, let a little bit of that butter just seep right into the middle of those potatoes. Okay? Come back through, get a nice little glossy layer. But basically our potatoes having that little bit of butter kind of creep into the inside is going to really help us get that beautiful finish on them. Okay? So at this point, I'm using the most of my butter. We got a little bit left. Okay? A little bit left over here in my pot, which honestly I'm going to save that and make sure we're going to use that in our basting. Okay, when we go to baste up our steak. All right, but just to show you what mine are looking like up close. Right, you can start to see those layers coming by. Look at that. Boom. All right. Looking gorgeous. But these need a little bit more cook time. Okay? And you can kind of take your knife over here, or kind of a smaller knife as well. Just kind of press into those potatoes. We want there to be 0 resistance, okay? 0.0 resistance. And that's super important. Again, we're using russet potatoes, so they're going to get nice and fluffy on the inside, super crispy on the outside, okay? So I'm going to go ahead, pop mine back in the oven, okay? And I'm just going to set another like 10-minute timer. I'm going to go on a quick break. We're going to come back, cook our steaks, finish up that asparagus, and we'll be eating here in just a moment. So go ahead, pop those back in the oven. I'll see you here in a second, okay? All right. Back from our break. Our potatoes have been cooking for another couple minutes or so, right? Might still need a little bit more heat on the outside to get that crispiness. But we're going to go ahead. We're going to start cooking these steaks as they've tempered. They look beautiful. And we're ready to eat, okay? So what I want you to do is grab those steaks. Step 1, make sure they're nice and dry. Okay? So we're going to come over here. Pat them dry with our little paper towels. Okay? They tempered. They're not super, super, super cold to the touch. Right? And so, these cool-out steaks are really nice. You know, they're kind of an inch thick, and they're going to cook really well. But I want to season them all over the outside with salt. Okay? Whenever we season, we always season from up high on a plate. That way we make sure that we actually catch the salt as it comes down onto the plate, and you'll see we're going to mop up with our steak any salt that might have fallen off. Okay, let's come over here. Get it well seasoned. Okay, literally use that plate to kind of mop up that salt. All right. And what we want to do next is we want to go ahead and preheat our saute pan over very high heat. Okay? We're going to cook these steaks at high heat the entire time, right? Because these are nice small steaks. They're not going to take super long to cook. And we want to make sure our pan is ripping hot so we get that really good sear on the outside of it. Okay? So my pan is heating up. As it's heating up, I'm going to add my canola oil to the pan. Okay, go ahead, pop all that canola oil in there. All right. Everything that's left. It's a nice high heat oil for us. Okay. And once that pan begins smoking, right, that's when we're going to add our steak. And this is a really key visual indicator that your pan is hot enough, right? As oil at room temperature is thicker than water, right? Which is why it looks more viscous. As it heats up, oil becomes thinner, okay? And so the viscosity will loosen up and it'll start flowing like water, okay? So literally, I just move my pan back and forth, and you'll see it's starting to loosen up over here. It's not all the way there, but as I move it back and forth, it's starting to move from side to side, like with the consistency of water as opposed to that of oil. Okay, so as that's heating up, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to peppercorn crust these steaks. Okay, so I got my plate of peppercorns. So I want you to take one side of that steak that's nice and flat and fat, right? Place it on top of the peppercorns, lift it up, and place it down one more time, okay? And that's going to give us that beautiful peppercorn crusted top. Okay, that's going to be the side that goes down on our saute pan. Okay, so again, come over here, kind of squish it down. That second piece is almost going to mop up those peppercorns that are on there. All right, transfer it right over. Okay, if you got any extra peppercorns, you go ahead and just pop them on top of that steak, right? Waste not. And so that's how we get that beautiful peppercorn crust for that au poivre, right, that we're looking for over here. And because we got those kind of larger pieces, it's really, really delicious. Okay, so you'll see on my screen, my pan is preheated now, is nice and hot, right? My oil is smoking. I'm gonna come over here, peppercorn crust side down, right? Into my saute pan. All right. So again, peppercorn side down in my pan. All right. And the way we're gonna cook this steak is we're gonna flip it over pretty regularly. Okay. About every 30 seconds or so, but that first side, I actually want to cook just a touch longer just to make sure that those peppercorns are set. Alright? And as I'm cooking my steak, very importantly, you will notice that my steak is not sticking to my pan. Okay? Anytime you're cooking and your protein sticks to your pan, if you're sauteing it, 100% of the time it's because the pan wasn't hot enough, right? Get the pan ripping hot and you will not have that problem, okay? The problem you will have is getting smoked out with this peppercorn gas over here, all right? So open up a window. We're going to get our first flip going. Okay, so I'm going to come over here and give it a flip. Boom, look at that. Oh. Absolutely stunning. Okay? So now that we got that first side really set, now we're going to get in the zone where we're going to flip our steaks every 30 seconds to really give us that beautiful crust, and we're going to allow ourselves to get that edge-to-edge kind of medium rare color to it. Okay? So, as I'm cooking these, again, every 30 seconds or so, and this is a really cool technique. It works for these beautiful culotte steaks, works for filet mignon, right? Works for New York strip steaks, for ribeye steaks. Anytime you're cooking steak, 30 seconds, high heat the whole time, butter based with some aromatics. It's amazing, right? So I'm going to come over here. I'm giving my next flip, right? So just be very careful with those peppercorn crusted, right? Boom. And even if a couple peppercorns fall off, not the end of the world, right? Nice. And by continuously rotating the beef and having that super high heat hitting it the entire time, we're going to get that beautiful crust and that kind of edge-to-edge temperature, okay? Because we're never going to be hitting it with heat so hard on one side that we're going to get that gray line into the beef. And this is kind of the little techniques that we do in a restaurant that when you go eat at a restaurant, you might notice, like, hey, how do they always perfectly cook the beef? You know, we temper it, we flip it. We'll get to the resting part when we get there, but all those really add up and are super important, okay? I'm coming back here. Another flip. Alright, boom, look at those. Looking gorgeous. Okay. And so, when we go to cook we go to test our steak, right, I always test for the bounce. Okay? And with these, you can kind of press from the side, too. Mine are still pretty rare. But as we press them, what we're looking for is the feel. Okay? So, take your hand, connect your pinky finger to your thumb. That little bit of muscle right there, press that. That's what rare feels like. Okay? Which for me, my steaks are about there. Okay? I'm going to show you what medium rare feels like next, right? And I'm using a spoon to flip my steak, but you can totally use a pair of tongs if you like, right? So back to our lesson. Ring finger and pinky finger, that's medium rare, okay? Add your middle finger, that's medium. Add your index finger, medium well. All right, make a super quick, tight fist, that's well done, okay? So that's a good way just to test to see where your steak is and how done it is, okay? So mine, really close to medium rare, okay? So I'm getting ready to seal the sides of my beef. So At this point, now I'm just going to give it a quick little once over on the edge, on each edge to seal the outside. All right. So I got that side sealed. I'm gonna come over here, right? Seal the other side. Beautiful. All right. Look at those beautiful steaks. Okay. So I'm gonna test mine again. Mine needs a little bit more, and then they're gonna be at that beautiful medium rare. Okay? And so basically, once we get these steaks out and resting, we're gonna baste them first. We'll get them out resting. We'll get our asparagus in our oven to finish cooking. We'll be eating here in just a couple minutes. Okay? So back to our steaks, one more flip. All right. Boom. I'm going to take a look at my Hasselback potatoes. Wow. Check those out, right? Boom. All right. I'm going to keep them back in there. They just need a little bit more, but they're looking delicious. Then I'm going to come flip this steak over, right? And now we're ready to baste it up, okay? So now, I'm going to turn my heat down to about medium, right? We're going medium heat. And this is where our basting setup comes in. So get that butter in there, all right, along with the thyme and garlic. Make sure you get any additional butter, right? That was from our Hasselback potato basting. All right, and let that get all magical, right? Oh man, that rosemary smelling delicious, right? Peppercorn side up, and we're gonna put this thyme and garlic on top of our steaks. Or sorry, rosemary and garlic rather. Put that on top of our steaks, okay? Get this nice little fried rosemary leaves. And we're gonna baste up these steaks with this beautiful thyme and garlic butter. Alright? So let your pan lean back, just baste it up, right? Usually where Careless Whisper starts playing, right? Boom, look at that. So much deliciousness going on. Alright. Then we're going to get them out of the pan onto our cutting board. Okay? So again, pop them out of the pan onto our cutting board. Boom. Look at that. Got our beautiful culotte steaks over here. Really important that you want to let that thyme and garlic rest on top of those steaks. Sorry, rosemary and garlic. We cook with thyme so much on the steaks over here. I always get ahead of myself, get excited about there being thyme. And we're going to save a little bit of that crispy rosemary to sprinkle on top of our Hasselback potatoes. Going to be unbelievably delicious. Okay? But what I'm going to do next is we're going to take those asparagus, the asparagus, right, that's been hanging out. We're going to pop those in the oven for 5 minutes. So pop those in there along with our Hasselback potatoes. We got 5-minute timer going over here. Okay. Boom, there we go. All right. And so you'll see over here we have our steaks resting. All right, look at that. Super delicious. Okay. We have our sauce over here, staying nice and warm. That pan with that cooking fat in there, you can save that cooking fat, right? We can, you can save it, cook some potatoes in it in the future, look absolutely delicious, okay? And then what I want to do in these last 5 minutes is just take a look at my Hasselback potatoes, right? And get a little glaze, right? A little finishing glaze on there. And this is a little chefy move that you don't have to do, but it is nice. All right. So see, my potatoes are looking incredible. All right. What I like to do is I'm going to come over here. We're going to just warm up our sauce, right, over a nice low heat over here. Just going to take my little pastry brush. Hey, grab just a little bit of this sauce, just a touch, right? And literally just brush a little bit of that sauce ever so gently on the outside of these potatoes. And that additional creaminess, right, gives us a little bit more flavor, right? Because we're getting a little bit of flavor inside the potatoes, right? Boom. And we're almost getting a little bit of glaze in each of those little crevices, those little potato crevices, okay? And cream acts like what butter does, right? Kind of browns up on us too. So just pop a little bit in there. We're going to pop these back in the oven just to finish glazing along with our asparagus. Alright. And I have my sauce over here that I just have heating up over a nice low heat, right? I just want my sauce to be nice and warm when it goes on the plate. Super simple, right? No need to boil it. If you boil it, it's going to reduce and the sauce will actually get a little bit too thick, right? We don't really want it to be thick. If it is, you can add a couple teaspoons of water to it. Just let a little bit of, just let it out just a touch, okay? But you can see over here, we got our beautiful steaks looking absolutely incredible, okay? And this step right here, the resting point, is really important, right? I'm sure all of us have heard resting the meat is important, but just to put it in perspective, it is physically impossible. Just like without tempering meat, you cannot cook it properly. You cannot cook meat properly if you do not rest it, right? It won't happen. The reason being is because the meat, when it's really, really hot, the juices will literally just flow out of the meat, right? They will not stay there. And that's what causes our meat to gray out a whole lot, right? When our meat is not super, super hot, when it's come down and it's cooled down a little bit and it's warm but not crazy hot, that's what allows us to get that really nice pink interior, right? And so the reason why this is important is because, you know, we've taken all this time to dry the steak, temper the steak, season it, crust it, cook it, baste it. We got it out of the pan, right? Many times, if like you'll see a lot of chefs, they'll immediately carve right into it, and right then and there, all that hard work that was done before it has gone to waste, right? So don't do it, okay? Don't. Little chef tip over here. So as we're waiting for these to rest, okay, I'm just gonna get my station organized for the most beautiful plating that I can come up with. All right, so grab your favorite plate. Grab this little guy over here, right? And a couple of them. Beautiful. And our little timer is going off over here in about 20 seconds, okay? And so, asparagus, a lot of times, many of us, we overcook asparagus. It gets that stringy texture, that kind of like army green color that no one enjoys. You got to cook asparagus really fast. Keep it super bright green and really tender and juicy on the inside. Okay, so 5 minutes. 5 minutes in a super hot oven, the way we're cooking it today, is a great way to cook asparagus. And again, we're just doing it with a little bit of oil and salt, but you can literally toss that in a little vinaigrette, right? Or you can toss it in some oil and salt when it comes out, finish it with some fresh lemon juice, delicious. But it's a great way to cook asparagus, right? That's what I'm getting at. So what we're going to do is come over here, we're going to unveil our Hasselback potatoes. Boom, look at those guys. Oh yeah. Alright, look at how beautiful and glazed those are. Okay? All the layers. And then with my knife, right, I want 0 resistance. Perfect. So it goes in and out, no resistance at all. We got that really nice glaze over the top. Okay? My asparagus as well. You'll see, we cook them super fast to stay nice and bright green. Alright? Boom. So, what I like doing with my Hasselback potatoes, personally, right, is I like just coming over here. Again, my sauce is nice and warm. I like just getting just a little bit of sauce on there, right? It doesn't have to be anything crazy. Just a little bit on top, right? And then take some of this beautiful crispy rosemary that's on top of our steak, right? And we're literally just gonna crush it, right, with our hands over the top of these potatoes to give it that really nice kind of fried rosemary effect over the top, right? This is a cool move. You'll see fried herbs a lot when we cook in the restaurant. It's a delicious addition, right? I love it. Adds that little bit of garnish appeal to it, and nice little bit of texture as well, right? So any way you cut it, very nice. So at this point, we have our Hasselback potatoes are looking beautiful. Over here, our steaks are looking gorgeous, and it is time to carve them up. Okay. So I want to come over here. We're going to remove the thyme and garlic from these steaks. All right. Set it off to the side. And we're going to carve our steak against the grain. Okay, so we're going to carve it the short way. All right. So take your steak like this. Very importantly, as you're carving, get a nice sharp knife. Right? You can kind of hit it on the steel real quick if you want. Okay? And then I'm going to come over here and literally just move my knife back and forth all the way until I hit my cutting board. Alright? And I'm going to go, nice half-inch thick pieces, right? Again, all the way down. And you might have to go back and forth a little bit, right? We took all that time to get that beautiful crust and those peppercorns on top, right? Boom, but it'll be totally worth it as we come through here, okay? Oh my gosh, look at this. This is perfectly cooked beef over here, I can say. So, come through, get it cut. Alright, check this out. Boom. That's perfectly cooked meat. And again, because we cut it across the grain, you see how the grain is shorter, right? So, set that guy off to the side. Any of those little meat juices, we're going to save those to put in our sauce, right? Never, ever, ever throw away meat juices. They are delicious, okay? And again, you might have to go back and forth a couple times depending on how sharp your knife is, okay? To be completely honest, I could even use our knife sharpening class at this point, but I digress. But moving your knife back and forth like that gives us that really sharp carve that we're looking for. Okay. Boom. So we got our steaks looking gorgeous. Okay. We're going to come through here. We're going to plate it up. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my plates. And this dish plates really, really well. It looks really beautiful when we plate it up. So come over here. David Hasselhoff. All right, let him hang out. Right there, our little David Hasselhoff potatoes, right? Boom. And then with our asparagus, what I like to do is I like to kind of lay them down, okay, with the tops of my asparagus up top, right? And the bottoms down low. And I like to go kind of vertical and then horizontal, and you'll see the method to the madness here, Chef, just in a moment. All right, let's come over here. A little bit up top, a little bit down low. All right, and now for the grand finale, come over here with our steaks. So whenever we're plating up meat, got a little for the chef, right? We want to show off that beautiful beef, okay? So make sure you have it out. That way people can see all that hard work that you put in, right? So again, I'm coming over here, plating it up, boom. Look at that. And again, the last one, I'm always going to plate facing out towards me. Get that nice look. Finish it off. A little bit of this sauce, okay? Look at these colors over here. Boom. And this steak with this sauce really works super well because we got all that Dijon, right? Worcestershire sauce really comes through and cuts directly through that fattiness, okay? And through those Hasselback potatoes too. All right. Boom. So see, I got just a little bit of my sauce left. Right? We would never even think about wasting those meat juices, right? Just emulsify it in. Right? I'm going to just finish the plate with it. Alright. Boom. So you can see over here, perfectly cooked culotte steaks over here. Ask your friends if they've ever had culotte steak before. If they haven't, you've learned to make it here at Truffle. Check that out. Boom. Perfectly cooked steak. Beautiful Hasselhoff potatoes. Alright. Meal fit for a king. We just want to place one last sprinkle truffle salt on top. And there you have it. Boom. Looking absolutely delicious. Okay? So, once you've knocked it out, make sure you show off your beautiful dishes online. Okay? We want to see how they're looking. And with that being said, congratulations. Nice job. Alright, we got some next level cuisine going on. But thank you very much for having me. I hope you enjoyed this. We want to see your dishes. Post them to the forum. Let us know. Tag us on Instagram. And I would love to cook with you again sometime. So, good night, everyone. Have a good one.